Hey everyone, it's Dave from Blue Bears Games here with another edition of $20 budget decks for Magic. Today's deck is Reanimator. This deck is more for an intermediate player so that they understand how it works, but I'll go ahead and explain it for the beginners so that you guys know how to use it. Reanimator simply means just bringing things back from the graveyard into play. Simple as that. So let's go ahead and show you how we go ahead and do that. As far as it goes, I chose red-black for a reason. Red is the easiest way to get cards into your graveyard. I have a lot of effects like this, so we're going to go over them. It's basically to help you get the right cards into your hand and the right cards into your graveyard as fast as possible. So I started off with a playset of Tormenting Voice. You discard a card, so if you drew a card that you want in the graveyard, you can go ahead and get that and bin it, as they say, and put it in the graveyard, and then draw 2 more cards. So we went with a playset of those. Cathartic Reunion is the same thing, only this time it lets you discard 2 cards and draw 3. The hope here is that if you have dead lands in your hand or big creatures that you want to drop in your hand, you can go ahead and do so. And Wild Guess, same thing as Tormenting Voice, it's discard a card to draw 2. So that is how we're attempting to get cards from either your hand, basically from your hand into your graveyard from your opening hand. So that's how we do that. The cards that are going to bring them back. So we start with Zombify. Return target creature from your graveyard into play. We'll show you those creatures in a little bit. I have a couple of... They're the same card, just so you're aware. It's both Zombifies, but this one is a Russian version of it. I got 2 of those. Rise from the Grave. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield. It is a zombie in addition to its other types. It's kind of weird that Zombify didn't do that anyway, but whatever. So we've got 4 of those. Necromantic Summons. This one does the same thing as the other 2, except for if there are 2 or more instances of sorcery cards in your graveyard, which you obviously will, you can put it on the battlefield with 2 additional +1/+1 counters. Now, the other difference between this and the Rise from the Grave. Oh, I'm sorry, Zombify. Zombify is from your graveyard. Rise from the Grave is a graveyard. So in case your opponent's playing something even nastier than what you have in your graveyard, you can go ahead and steal theirs. The good thing about the Necromantic Summonings is you can also make it bigger than if they had one on the field. It'll be +2/+2. Now, you gotta survive to make that all happen. So we put in a couple of terrors. That way we can take care of any of their baddies that we need to. Or if you see something you want to steal for yourself, you can go ahead and do that. And there's a lot of creature removal in this deck. Spot removal is what we call it, just because I want to make sure that their field is empty. Eviscerate. Originally I was going to put in a different card, but it said exile, and you don't want to exile their cards because you may want to steal them for yourself. Daring Demolition. In case they're playing vehicles, you never know. Sometimes people are playing vehicles, you never know. They're hard to remove with spot removal. Just as a side note, I've been playing duels, Magic duels, and because it hasn't been updated since vehicles were a big thing, a lot of the decks play vehicles, and essentially this is just my way of being able to avoid them from being unable to be spot removed. So that's the removal. Some of it anyway. Alright, our big baddies. You ready? Eldrazi. Who doesn't love Eldrazi? So, it's 8 to cast, but if you can get it zombified for 4, you Tormenting Voice, and then you go ahead and drop this into your grave, and then zombify it back out on turn 4, you've got an 8/9 trampler on 4th turn. Come on now. So, there's that. Then there's the hand. I put in Hand of Emrakul for the Annihilator. It's big. It's a 7/7. It's not as big as some of the other ones, but it's for the Annihilator, so that you can help get stuff. It can help you get stuff off your opponent's side of the board. I went with 4 of those because they're just essential for this. Same thing with the Ulamog's Crusher. Yeah, it has to attack each turn, but you're trying to attack with them anyway. It's got Annihilator too. So, that's kind of important. So the Annihilator, I put a play set of those in here because the Annihilator is what I'm going for. Can you imagine Tormenting Voice on second turn, dropping this and a Devastator into your graveyard on fourth turn, zombifying on fifth turn, Necromantic Summonings, giving it +2/+2. So there's that. Now, for the rares, I wanted to make sure there was devastation galore on the battlefield, so I put an Earthquake in. Earthquake is to make sure that the initial rush of your opponent, if it's all ground creatures, they die. It gives their graveyard, targeting for in case you want to pull something out of their grave. And your creatures, they're usually going to be bigger than what you can Earthquake for. So yours will survive, theirs will die. There you go. And also, with the Annihilator on the couple of the Eldrazi, if you've eliminated stuff, guess what they have to choose if they've got no creatures on the board? Now you're doing land destruction, so it's pretty convenient. Starstorm, because Earthquake doesn't hit flying creatures, this does. If for some reason you draw it late game and you don't need it, you can also cycle it. That way you're not, you're getting better cards if you need them. I would keep this in your hand for just in case purposes when you draw it. You never know what's going to pop out. So, Tense with Immortality. Now, this one's a little more interesting. I actually stole it from one of the commander decks. As you can see, it has a commander symbol on it. Basically, it reads, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then each opponent may return a creature card from their graveyard. And then for each opponent that does that, you get to do it again. So in a 1v1 game, you're essentially going to get 2 creatures for the price of 1. Now remember, you have Eldrazi. What do they have? Llanowar? So, it's effective. For the special card, I went with In Garrick's Wake. I need as much stuff to die on my opponent's side as possible. This does the job. In fact, it does the job versus Planeswalkers too. So I went ahead and put that in there. I have a lot of extra copies of this, and I know it's expensive to cast, but it does a job that needs to be done in a lot of budget decks. If you're doing budget deck versus budget deck, the games go a little longer than, say, if you're doing like Cutthroat Modern, where the games last 5 turns, maybe 6. And especially if you're just learning how to play, your games are going to go a lot longer. So I threw that in there. Now, for the lands, as always, 2 Evolving Wilds, essentially your fetch lands on a budget. 4 copies of Rakdos Guildgate because it's a black-red deck and you need that. And then the rest is just basic swamps and mountains. So, that is my budget version of a Reanimator deck. Hopefully you guys can enjoy this one. I don't really like Reanimation myself. It's more for the player who wants to be a little bit more advanced, but with creatures. I'm not a creature person myself. I'm more of a control person, so, there is that. But anyway, that's my Reanimator deck on a budget for you guys. Any questions or comments, go ahead and put them below. I'll go ahead and answer anything I can. Please be sure to like us on Facebook, like the video, share it out to your social media, and please subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot more to go over. Anyway, that was Reanimator. I hope you enjoyed the video, and you have a nice day.